Welcome to the Base Alpha podcast, Touching Base. Today's guest is a cultural lifestyle coach who is breaking barriers by helping women overcome generational health issues and cultural limitations. She has scaled her business to 100K, sold out her first event in 2024, and has helped countless women shatter through limiting beliefs that are imposed by cultural pressure. She is a strong voice for women's rights, a fierce advocate of mental health, and has struggled with her own limiting beliefs around her own identity as a mixed race woman, and has used that to her own strengths. And if you didn't think that was impressive enough, just to cap it off, she is Scouse. Now, before we get into, do you like that? Before we get into the episode, I want to make sure that you hit the like button and make sure you sub to the channel so we can continue to bring you episodes just like this. Maya, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
What an intro, by the way. Thank you so much.
I speak the truth.
Thank you.
I speak the truth. So first off, what is cultural lifestyle coaching, and why didn't you go down the route of I'm the coach who's going to give you a big bum and a flat stomach?
The funny thing is I think I was that coach who started off with the big bum and the flat stomach, but as I've obviously earned my merits, become a coach, I started to understand that the women that I was attracting had a lot of similarities, and a lot of that was cultural influence within their life from wherever they came from and how that impacts their nutrition, their mentality and mindset. And that was a bit of a spark of a passion for me because I loved talking about that stuff. I loved helping women understand and unlearn a lot of things. And I think it just was a very natural transition for me, but it felt very purposeful at the time.
Got you. So the women who initially came to you, was that their main goal? I just want to get in shape from an aesthetic point of view.
I think it always sometimes is if it's surface level, you know, but I understand that my content and my coaching was surface level as well. So beginning, you know, when I was a PT and a coach, it was very much like, oh yeah, book on for your sessions. Oh yeah, come on to this program and you can lose weight and whatever. And then eventually when I did start to be a bit more brave with the stuff that I was talking about and the things that I was learning from my clients, that is when it became less than surface level. It became more of, hey, like I actually don't want to have diabetes when I'm older, like my parents. I don't want to have disordered eating patterns and feel like I've got to constantly overeat with my foods or be scared of the gym because I've been told something about myself. So it just really opens up a door for me now to drive into that a little bit more.
Got you. Yeah. And for yourself, is that where you find the most fulfillment?
Yeah.
Compared to before?
Yeah, I think, you know what it is? I think you've got to be able to constantly feel fulfilled in something, especially when you're running any business, you know? You can't just keep rinsing and repeating the same conversations in the same day before you feel unfulfilled then.
Yeah.
And when that door kind of opened and I did make the switch to becoming a cultural coach, I'll be honest, that was like the weirdest thing because people were
in
like...
what sense?
Like, because people didn't know what it meant. Do you get what I mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
For me, it's about respecting and understanding the woman in front of me and the culture that she comes from. It's not about just a certain niche. And, you know, we see it a lot in the fitness industry. It's like, I only coach Asian people. I only coach Black people. I only coach Colombian people, right? And though that works in the same theory, I didn't have to close the doors on everybody else because me, myself, come from two different backgrounds. You know what I'm saying? So I was able to understand and adapt a lot of different things. But at first, it was very much like, will people get it? You know, like, will they understand what culture means? Because, like, what does culture mean? Yeah. Like, what would you say that means?
I would say culture is, it can be a variety of things. It could be beliefs. It can be how you interact. You know, things that might seem rude in one place might not be rude in another place, like burping, for example. You know, in certain cultures you burp, oh, shut up, it's rude, shouldn't be doing that. In other cultures, if you burp, it's a sign of respect, like you really enjoyed the meal.
Yeah.
You know, so that is, I think culture celebrates differences in people.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
For me. And I think a lot of the time, especially in the UK, in the West, when you do come from a different cultural background, it's seen as a negative. And then you kind of, almost, I've seen people kind of whitewash themselves to fit in.
Yep.
Okay. And for me, that isn't a good thing or a bad thing, but it's interesting to see how people adapt to that environment and how they hold on to their cultural roots.
Yeah.
And it's not good or bad either way. I just find it interesting to see how people do that and how that manifests.
Yeah, it's an identity thing. Like it is, it's who you are. And I think it's very hard to relate to somebody if you can't respect that version of yourself. You know, a lot of people who, when they hire a coach, they kind of want to 360, 180 themselves to be a completely different person. I don't want this habit, this trait, this, but really you've got to respect a lot about that person, what they do for a living, what they actually hold important to them, to actually link things like fitness, nutrition, exercise back to their journey. And I think that's what a cultural coach for me is. It's about understanding, okay, well, what does this person actually have that they hold important to them that we can respect within this space, rather than generically just meal plan them, or generically just tell them to start going to the gym, or tell them they want big glutes. Not everyone we coach wants big glutes.
Your goal is your fucking goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I get that. So, with yourself obviously being mixed race, you're balancing two different identities. How has that manifested itself in your coaching and also shaped you as an individual as you've grown? We've only had a conversation off camera. I don't know if you want me to disclose your age, but I was shocked.
No, go for it.
So she's 25, okay? And the reason that was shocking for me is because you seem a lot wiser than your years. So where's that come from? And in terms of, you being mixed race, how has that shaped you? And how do you balance the two? You've got a white side of the family and a black side of the family. So how does that kind of look for you?
You know what it is, if I'm being very honest, I didn't know my Nigerian side until later in life. Like, I understood it and I knew it, but where I'm from, so I grew up in Huyton. If you've ever heard of Huyton, like it's a very interesting place. So me and my dad were the only black faces you're going to see around that area, other than the man who maybe owns the shop. That's it, right? So when I was in school, it was very clear for me just straight off that I was different. So I think it was never me denying my culture. It was just surviving. You know what I mean? Like, I'm probably not going to pretend that I like certain types of music as much. I'm probably going to straighten my hair and be a little bit less than myself and like the interests of other people. I was very young and impressionable as well. I'm not saying that all my experiences of my childhood were hard. They definitely weren't. I was wrapped in cotton wool by my mum and dad. They were great parents and I had great friends. Do you know what I'm saying? But as I got older, I was like, I'm more interested in leaning into this side of me a little bit now, because it's very different to what I'm used to. And I quite like that. Does that make sense? I want to learn a little bit more about where my dad's from, or like the language that they speak and how they treat people versus how they maybe treat people in Liverpool, But even now, like, I travel, like I love to travel. And for me, it's not the nice fancy hotel. Like, that's whatever. It's the culture. That's what I want to see. I want to see how the locals live, how they do things. And I think I had to have all of that to know why I do what I do today. Like, it's made me understand people quite easily and read situations a lot better. So, yeah.
Got you. So I want to touch on what you were doing before coaching, door-to-door sales. What lessons did you take from door-to-door sales? Because I can imagine it's tough. And were you knocking in the same areas that you were speaking about where you grew up? Was it a similar sort of area?
Yeah, I knocked on doors of... I used to see a lad and I knocked on his door trying to change his gas and electric. The truth is, I had nothing to lose. So I think it's very easy to come from a place like, at that time, I had no career lines up. I just got into the same, like the first bit of work I seen, I was like, well, I'm going to do it because I need money. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even know it was door-to-door sales, because you never know it's door-to-door sales. You just turn up and then they're like, oh yeah, we're knocking on some doors today. And then they try and sell you this pyramid scheme. And then I was in, because again, I was impressionable. Do you know what I mean? I didn't realize what this actually was. And then when I basically started doing it, I kind of liked it. And I think what I liked about it as someone who's self-employed now is that I am in charge of what I make. That was what I actually liked. A lot of people, that scares them. Yeah. But for me, from working in Harvey Nichols before, I'd be breaking me back trying to make sure that everything is done and just get paid the same. And I never understood that concept ever. Yeah. So doing sales, yeah, it's hard. Like, you're knocking on 200 doors a day. Some people are slamming them in your face. Some people are nice and they'll invite you in for a cup of tea. Snow, sleet, everything. But I just got used to getting rejected. It was great. It was great. Like, it never affected me anymore. Like, if someone said no to me, cool, next one. It just all become numbers, and I think I needed that.
Were you affected by it in the beginning, or what did it not bother you straight off the bat?
I think because I expected it, because I've been the other person on the side of the door. It didn't bother me as much as a lot of people feel like it should. Like, no isn't a hard word for me. Do you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people don't have those experiences in life, so when they do get rejected on like any scale, you can't take it. But because I kind of knew, well, I'm knocking on their door, disturbing them. Chances are it's a law of averages thing. Look at all these people. If this person doesn't want it, someone else is going to want it. And I had no connection or attachments to it. So it was very easy to just go, okay, let me give it a go. You know what I mean? Didn't do that well. I didn't last that long. I did about 7 months of it. But I kind of just liked being in charge of myself and knowing that if I do more, I get more.
Yeah.
If I don't do enough, I don't get enough.
There's a meritocracy. And I think a lot of people look at it from the negative point where there's no safety net, but there's also no ceiling with that sort of thing. So it depends what sort of mindset you've got. If you're risk averse, then you're going to hate it. You're not even going to try.
No, exactly.
You know, in terms of you scaling your business to 100K, what do you feel like has made the biggest difference in achieving that up until this point?
For me, it was definitely not needing any instant gratification to do what I was doing. Like, the thing is about me is once I've got my mind set on something, you've probably heard this from a lot of people, it becomes a bit of like a obsession and a standard. Do you get what I'm saying? So when I first came in, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to make a shitload of mistakes here. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to have to get a lot of things wrong before I get it right. So when someone would criticize me, I'd actually just hear it. You know what I mean? Now I'm a bit more developed and I understand what I do and who I am. It's a bit like, okay, I don't have to actually listen to that one, but I can listen to something else. I just accepted that it was going to be hard. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to get to the place where a lot of these people are going to be without a little bit of shit happening. You know what I'm saying? But I just turned up every day. Like, I genuinely don't think you can fail if you turn up every day. Because even if you turn up wrong for a long time, you're eventually going to turn up right. Yeah. So, like, for example, I was speaking to my friend, Matthew. He does content and we did like a content session. And we were talking about like posting. He was like, oh, I made the commitment to post every day. I went, oh, that's funny. I made that commitment like 2 years ago. So I've posted on my socials, which is a free platform, by the way, like 350 days in a year. Right? Some people do one, disappear and never come back and then wonder why they're not where they are. Do you know what I'm saying? So to get me business to where it is today, I think honestly it was like a sense of just keep getting it wrong, then get it right, then you probably won't get it wrong again. Does that make sense?
And that's like a carryover from the door-to-door sales almost, you know? Being able to show up, get doors slammed in your face. No one's biting when you're putting your content out there. But that's fine. You just keep going and you figure it out. Obviously, you've worked with business mentors and I think the 100K or the 10K months is what people kind of aim towards. How much does it really change your life? Because I know people kind of say, oh, 10K a month, that's like the big goal. In your opinion, is that enough to kind of, how did that change your life actually? How did the 10K months, how did the 100K a year actually change your life?
I think for me, I'm not going to say that it hasn't been a blessing. Like, because I can see that, you know, especially, you'll know, certain cultures, you understand how some people really do live. Do you know what I mean? And the things that you've probably seen. Earning 100K in your business revenue and getting 100K profit to put in your...
Different story.
It's a different story, right? Because cogs still need to turn in order for that same repetition to happen. And the problem with me is the reason why I wasn't getting to where I want to get to, because the same cogs weren't turning in the same direction every single month. Once they all kind of aligned, for me, it wasn't just like the numbers. It was more, do I feel like this is moving forward? Like, can I feel it? The numbers one thing, of course, but it was that whole, okay, I know that I'm doing well, I'm turning up, the same cogs are turning, I'm ticking off the boxes that I need to, and then that just kind of happened. But as for changing your life, I invest a lot of it. I do a lot of like leaving it to the side. I don't overspend. I've never overspent. I like to travel. But in the general scope of things, like if I give up tomorrow, it's not going to change my life. Like that 100K of I made last year, it's not going to change.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think this whole, the industry in terms of business mentors and that sort of thing. I mean, look, I think business mentors do get a hard time a lot of the time because at the end of the day, their whole offer is based on a result. They're not factoring in that the person that they're coaching or mentoring in front of might just be shit, you know? So people kind of get dragged into that, oh, I've signed up with this person or that person, they're going to get me there. Ultimately, it's you and your capabilities, and that's what you've got. Obviously, you've showed up every day, even when it wasn't working, which is great. I want to touch on your relationship, or your opinion, should I say, about the cultural problems in Black and Asian communities. And what do you see as the most pressing issue that needs addressing in Black and Asian communities, in your opinion?
In terms of fitness and what we do, or in general?
Let's go general.
General.
Because I think that's going to speak to a lot more people on a wider level, and then we can dig into fitness and nutrition, that sort of thing.
Again, I'll talk more from what I can understand and what I can see, because at the end of the day, if you go to different places in the world, it's probably going to differ. I think for a lot of people, we always kind of look up and never look at ourselves. And that's why a lot of the problems, like I'm very big on seeing like, you know, young boys when they get into certain situations, having someone who is a good sort of coach for them, moving them forward, helping them rewrite that. But a lot of the time, if your head's stuck and buried in the same things that oppressed you, and you think that that's the only thing that you can do, that's the issue. Does that make sense? It's like how some people can't leave a certain lifestyle. Some people don't want to, and that's fine. Or some people can't stop a certain behavior because they believe that that's what they were meant to do, and that's what everybody else does. Like, take it for example, like where we're going now, especially for like young men, a lot of them are seeing an example of fame and wealth, but fame and wealth even is quiet. It's not this loud, brash chains, music, all of this. And if you look at that and aim for that and perceive for that, you're going to get shocked when it doesn't actually give you the same response. And I think that's not just a problem in Black and Asian communities. I think it's in like every single community. Do you know what I mean? In every single culture I've seen, unless, you know, the only one place I'd say is when I went to Bali, I met a lot of people from Bali. They don't believe in being flashy and wealthy. That's not something that they're used to. It's more westernization within it. Does that make sense? And what they're chasing. They forget their own morals and things that they did maybe back home and the things that actually got them to where they were today. You know?
And I think human beings are influenced anyway. And with mainstream media nowadays, you got to think about who are the people that are allowing certain content, certain images, certain videos, certain narratives to be pushed. And that is there to essentially influence the youth at the end of the day. You know, if someone was to identify, for example, you know, stabbings, they've been on the rise the last 10 years, okay? It's common knowledge. And people say, you know, you can't blame rap music, you can't blame this, you can't blame that. But there's an influence. Human beings are inherently influenced by what they see, who they're with, etc. So turn off the taps. Are you with me? Because if you look at other countries, look at Russia, look at China, they haven't got problems like that.
I know. And that's why they're going to potentially be deleting TikTok in the US. Yeah. Like ban.
I had something taken off TikTok the other day, you know. The last podcast I did with Ash, just the trailer, they removed it for violence. Yeah,
they will. They remove you for loads of things, and they synthesize so many things, but the stuff that they don't synthesize, they want us to see. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, you know what? If you've got a mind of your own, you can look at something and go, that's stupid, that doesn't relate to me. Do you know what I mean? But how many times can you do that before eventually it's going to have an impact? Does that make sense?
It's going to seep in.
Yeah, of course. Like surgery for young women. And the one thing we notice quite a lot with the women that we coach is that they sit in self-deprecation constantly. Like they believe things about themselves that maybe they've learned from parents or other members of the family.
What things are we talking about specifically? Because obviously I'm a man, I don't really come across this.
A lot of like self-hate, unworthy. Men obviously have that too, but they hide it a lot better, I believe. Women will tell themselves things about themselves, and though they don't like it, they continue it, right? So like, let's say for example, someone in the family, you have a sister and a sister, because this has happened to me before. One is heavier, one is lighter, right? Both of them are related, but because that lighter one, the smaller petite one, got a lot of like gratification from family, automatically, no matter what, that now older sister or whoever she is, who may be a little bit larger, self-deprecates herself so other people won't do it before they do. Does that make sense? Like she will be the person to talk to herself like shit in case she's met back with that same situation again. She wants to be the first to beat them at the punch. And that happens a lot when we're coaching people through things like food and guilt, and also like training. Well, I'm always going to be this, so what is the point? Like that's what I actually believe about myself.
How do you go about breaking that cycle? You know, what strategies do you use to help clients overcome that?
My favorite thing is fact or fiction. because I can read that in a sentence, right? It's very clear when someone's being reactive and hyperbolic. You ever read The Chimp Paradox? You ever read that book?
Great book.
It's like when you've got the chimp and the human working together, and I can see a chimp coming out very simply in a client's behaviour or anyone's behaviour. Do you know what I mean? Even my own parents' behaviour and my own.
Can you just explain for those watching what you mean by that?
Oh, yeah, okay. So in the book, there's the chimp and the human, and both of them coincide together. You cannot just be a human, you cannot be a chimp. Now, your human is the logical thinker. It acts out of value and autonomy and things that you truly believe, your core beliefs. And your chimp is an emotional machine. So funny, I just did the TikTok on this earlier.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is both of them help you survive. Like, you need them both, because the chimp's going to be your fight or flight, and then the human's going to be the person who makes the logical decision to do something, right? But when you've got a situation, a lot of the time, and women will do this, men will do this, everyone will do this, the chimp jumps in and tries to take control without the human actually stepping in and doing something, right?
Because I think that's the part of the brain that reacts first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the emotional part of the brain.
But it's protecting you. And that's what a lot of people like don't understand. Like, you getting angry or you reacting to something, it's not about removing that behavior. It's knowing how to manage it, right? Which is why I sometimes hate the self-help gurus, because they're always like, oh, you should drop all that energy and drop all. You can't drop something that exists within you. You need to sit beside it and learn to manage it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the same way, like, if you were to look at your diet, if you've ate shit all your life and constantly ate sugar and this, and then you cold turkey, you're not going to be able to sustain that longer than like 2 weeks unless you've got no choice. Do you know what I'm saying? So for women, when we're coaching them, I can identify anyway within a sentence whether they're speaking from truth, fact, fiction, chimp, human. What do they actually mean when they say this to me? And that, the only difference between getting them out of that is time. Just time. Like, it may happen a couple times, and it'll be that one conversation that they realise the behaviour, and then they're like, oh, this is why I keep doing this. Like, this is why I've said the same thing every year and out. Yeah, it's this behaviour that I need to sort of break down, but I can't tell them. They've got to come to their own consideration with that first. So yeah.
Got you. You're very passionate about female-specific health issues in the food industry and its impact on body image. What do you believe are the biggest myths and misconceptions that you want to debunk, whether it's through your content, whether through your actual coaching?
About female health, food and
the food industry's impact on female health.
So first off, I think we get told that cultural foods are all oily and this and that, right?
I'll be honest with you, I kind of semi-agree with that, because my diet is your typical Western diet, as I would call it. Obviously, when my mum's cooking, there's curries, there are foods that are high and very rich, high in oil and very rich. I put that into my diet, I'm going to get fat, I tell you straight. So, not to say that I don't eat it at all, but it's like, for me, because it is highly palatable, I'm going to be like, Mum, just load another plate. I'll tell you straight. So I do understand from that standpoint why it can be it's enjoyable, it's part of your culture, but at the same time, it can be a detriment to your health, because as well, the way I look at it, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, is back home, the lifestyle is very different to what it is here.
Yeah.
Okay? We're sedentary, we're sitting around, we've got desk jobs, that sort of thing. Whereas back home, they might be having 2 meals a day and they're out pushing a cart all day, or they're farming. They're doing some manual work. And those guys don't get fat.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's like, how do you manage that within your clients? Say, for example, I'm one of your clients and I've got this approach to cultural food.
Yeah.
How would you talk to me? How would you tell me to approach that?
Is it the food or is it how it's cooked?
It's going to be how it's cooked, because my mum doesn't know how to cook it any other way.
Exactly, right? So this is the problem. People look at food on a surface level. They don't look at nutrition. That's what I think. And I believe the fitness industry has done this to people. They see calories and they think that's determinant of health. It's not, right? Because at the end of the day, things like palm oil and olive oil in small quantities can be absolutely great for health, right? They make your food taste nicer. they are probably something you're used to growing up with. But if you're only seeing it surface level on a calorie perspective, this is why your mentality to nutrition doesn't shift, right? A lot of the things in like West Africa, especially things like yams, if we're looking at the foods that we're having, like rices and the non-processed things that you should have, these are actually going to have a lot more benefits on your health because they satiate your energy longer. They're going to make you feel fuller for longer as well. But also you're used to it, right? You can't rewrite something you've known, which is why when I get like people of certain cultures still say to me, I just need to stop eating rice. I'm like, you've literally fucking grew up on rice. You're always going to eat it. Let's just get over that now. How are you approaching it though? Right? Like, because you can still enjoy some of the foods that you're having. It's just about adapting to change it. Right? So like if, you know, you were worried about eating your mum's home cooked meals because you were drenched in oil.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that food itself is bad though.
Yeah.
It's about how you're cooking it and preparing it, you know?
Completely understand.
And once you break that down, someone can look at a plate. Because one thing about food is that if there's guilt and shame attached to it, it only gets you so far. Yeah. Like, especially with women, because when we're looking at food and hormones and changes and stuff and that energy that we're trying to crave at certain points, if you're constantly guilt tripping someone for eating something, it's only going to spiral them out, right?
Yeah.
You've seen it. Look at the bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many bodybuilders
I've
do you
been
know?
there before myself after a shoot. For a few weeks, I'm in this binge and restrict cycle.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to hold on to the condition I'm in or whatever it might be. And it does fuck with the head. I'm like, yo.
Because food's got bliss points. You know what that means? Like, certain foods are going to have reactions to your brain and give you a feel-good feeling more than anything. So it's so normal to think that someone who's restrictive dieted for years and constantly cut out certain things for years will eventually go and eat 12 donuts and overconsume. And I don't want that for my clients. Anyone can give you a meal plan. Yeah, get one off ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But can you actually change someone's mindset on food? Can they go to their family functions, look at the samosas, look at the jollof rice, look at anything, right? And be able to go, I know I can have this, but this is what I need to do with my diet before and after. This is the portions, this is the controls, this is what's in it. And that is actually helping someone. Just telling them not to eat it isn't doing jack shit. That's not coaching. Do you know what I mean? That's just coasting it.
Yeah, I think it's very important to, especially if, I get it, and I know bodybuilders get a hard time in terms of this, but you got to remember with bodybuilding, I'm not going to call it a sport because I don't believe it's a sport. Might be an art form, maybe, okay? But essentially, you're in an extreme, let's call it a sport for the sake of this conversation. You're in an extreme sport. You're looking for an extreme outcome.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to go to extreme measures.
Of course.
Now, general lifestyle clients, they don't need that.
No.
They don't need to be single-digit body fat, you know? And to get there, it's grim. And,
It's grim.
And I've had people come to me and they're like, yeah, I want to get diced. I'm like, listen, when you're talking diced, what do you mean by that? Because people have different definitions.
I've never heard that word before.
Diced.
Diced.
Yeah, absolutely diced, yeah.
Never heard that.
Shredded, diced.
Okay.
Yeah, inside out.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, what they actually mean is like 12 to 14% body fat. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But they go to these bodybuilding coaches and they put them on this bodybuilding diet and they end up mentally battered
Oh yeah, of course.
off the back end.
But the thing is, everyone seeks comfort in food. Yeah, it's just the problem is if that's your only vice, that's your problem. You know what I mean? So even if you do think you're a machine or in a robot and you can push yourself to these low levels of body fat and stand on stage, it will catch up to you eventually. Like,
For sure.
there's no way, unless you're living on the fruit of the land and you've got no other choice and you can't get hold of the sweet stuff that you grew up with, it's gonna come back, right? So I know me, and I am not no bodybuilder, but I've done diets and I've done
You've done photo shoots
what
and that
I
sort of
thought
stuff,
was
yeah.
extreme. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Really, really pushing it. And like the next thing I want to do, even though I understand health and I love nutritious foods, I kind of want to pick out a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Everyone does, you do. But I think long term, especially when you're dealing with someone who hasn't walked in the same shoes as someone with, you know, the understanding and they know the body a little bit better, you've got to be able to give them something that's actually going to change them. And it is that. It's the change in approach. So yeah.
Do you think social media's got a big part to play in that?
In how we perceive certain things.
Body image.
Body image. Oh yeah.
And how does that
Everything.
affect women? Because I know how it affects men. How does that affect women? Does that manifest itself in their mindset and then it affects their approach to food?
You know what I think the most damaging thing about it is? It's the what's the point mentality with health now.
What do you mean?
Right? Because everyone understands the idea of you go to the gym and you eat nutritious foods and your body will change. Yeah, they get it. But if you can fly to Turkey and nip, tuck, change something in less than 24 hours, what's the point? If you can go and lose weight just by jabbing yourself with an injection, even though you don't need it and it's meant for people who actually need it, what's the point? That's the damaging thing. That's what people are giving up on, right? It's like, I see so much stuff every day on social media about skinny culture. There was a woman on TikTok who was talking about it, because I like to obviously see other people's opinions. And she was talking about, in certain cultures, being skinny is a sort of currency. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, being lower levels of body fat means you are more wealthy or more feminine or something. And that still exists to this day. So if that's an installed belief that people are having and they've grew up with as well, the desperacy to be what they're not will constantly overdrive the rest of like health and nutrition and fitness and what actually matters. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I think social media's made people quick fixes just naturally by association. Even us as like business owners, what do we always want? The quickest and easiest thing to get the job done, right? That's the same for every other woman, but just with the body. You know what I'm saying? And that's the damaging thing that's happening to us. No one wants to work on something anymore longer than freaking 3 months.
How do you combat that approach or that mindset? I'm sure you've had people in through your doors that have got that mindset. How do you get around that? How do you kind of get into their fucking head that, yo, listen, it might be the quickest way. It's not necessarily the best way. And then off the back of this, what do you think's going to happen?
I think that happens before they come to me. That makes sense.
So they've tried it already.
Yeah.
And they've been through that.
You ever heard the phrase, those who don't hear must feel?
No, I never heard that.
Those who don't hear must feel, right? So you've heard it, you know it's bad. Like, you
Got
know,
you, okay.
you know
Got
it's
you.
not, but you need to feel it first. Like, it's the same way that a lot of people, like if we look at like obesity, if you speak to someone who's been obese, they maybe have a moment where they felt that uncomfortable in their own body, that's what forced them to change. That was the feeling that made them sort of change and switch things for themselves.
Yeah, so there's an element of pain. I speak about that quite a lot. You have to experience a certain amount of pain.
Those who don't hear must feel, right? So if women now, you know, and I've said this happened to me before. I've had clients who have worked with me and then left, probably weren't the best thing for them at the time. And I can admit that as a coach, like not everyone I work with gets a success story. Yeah, it's not the way it goes. But after that, I've seen that they've gone away and got surgery, right? And gastric bands or whatever they want to do. There was nothing that I could have done in that situation if that was a decision that someone was willing to make. I can only know so much about a person to what they let me know as well, right? So if someone was to say to me, I want to try this before we actually do surgery, then that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? I'm on the same board as you. But again, the same works vice versa. Those who don't hear must feel. I can tell you how good this is for you, but you're not going to get that until you feel it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you can get in anyone's head about it. It's fixed until it's not. Do you know what I mean? Until they can experience it themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I completely understand. You went to uni, right?
Yeah. 6 months.
What happened there?
Oh.
And why did you not stick around? Because I find that very interesting.
Do you want the short story or the long story?
We got time.
Okay. Everyone in my family went uni. So I
You're
therefore...
Nigerian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My dad's a doctor. He did 14 years of education. Like, it's a long time. Do you know what I mean? And he's still learning now, right? It wasn't that I even wanted to go, but I remember being in college. I was a little shit, right? I didn't care about nothing. Yeah, I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to see me fella at the time. I wanted to just be a girl, do me makeup and hair. That's all I cared about when I was in college, right? And then someone said to me, why are you in college if you don't want to go uni? And I remember just sitting there thinking, shit, I've just like not thought about this at all.
It's
like,
just what you do, right?
Yeah,
School, college, and then uni.
I was 17. Like, what the fuck am I meant to know? I don't know anything, right? And then I ended up looking at 2 unis. One was in Huddersfield. 3 unis. One was in Huddersfield. One was in London. And one was in Manny. I literally just went, that one. Like, that one. I seen them. I just went, that one. I didn't care at all. Like, London was never going to happen because I was like, but between Huddersfield and Manny, I was just like, that one. I like Manny. I like the nightlife. That's what I picked it off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ended up doing interior architecture for 6 months. I don't remember anything I didn't do anything. I think I just did what everyone told me to do, go to uni. And honestly, I want to say it was a big regret. It wasn't a regret. I needed that. But I think that was when I felt like a dark cloud was over my head the whole time I was there. Like, people say that your mental health can obviously dip a little bit when you go to uni and stuff, because number one, you've moved away from like your family and friends. If you have moved away, you have to feel like everything in your life is decided now, that whatever you're doing in this 4-year course.
It's a lot of pressure, I can imagine.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, I've never been, but...
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to go through it, but the truth is, I just knew I weren't meant to be there. I just knew. I just carried on.
Why did you feel that way? Was it something inside of you where you thought, this isn't the right route for me, or it's just, I don't fit?
On day one, they told us there was a 20% hiring rate. 20%.
Once again, that control's taken away from me with that
I went,
stat.
exactly. I went, you mean to tell me I'm going to pay 27 grand, do this, architecture, whatever you want to call it, and then I'm not even going to be able to get a job, right? So what am I doing here? Because I'm spending more money. I'm living in the worst student accommodation I've ever laid my eyes on. And to be fair, at the time, it was just, my mental health's that bad, I'm not going back. Just never went back. Like... And after it, I think a lot of people, like, I felt like no one said anything to me, but I knew it disappointed them, because I was like, I've got no plan. It was horrible. Like, I will say that, like, if you've ever been in that situation where you've genuinely got no plan and people are asking you, so what are you going to do for work? So what do you want to do with your life? It's the worst feeling, because you feel like you have to kind of like say something.
Yeah, especially with, like you described with your family, everyone's educated.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it got that bad. Like, there was a point really where, like, I don't like throwing the word depressed about, but people were recognizing it in my behavior, and the doctors like contacted me and asked me if I wanted to go on antidepressants. And at that point I was like, no. No.
What's your definition of depression? Because I have this conversation a lot with a lot of my clients recently.
The only way I could describe how I felt is that I was just a person, and like I was almost a puppet, right? Like, I was a high functioning depressive, so I like to give them different terms. There's people who will just completely like shut down. But then there's people who will relive the same day. And I think more men are high functioning depressives than women sometimes, but you can see it in women's behavior after they get postpartum depression, where they can't stop functioning. They've got to keep taking care of this baby, but inside it's just like puppet, right? Like, you do this, you do that. There's no emotion, there's no feeling. It's kind of numb. And even though I was very young at the time, I just kind of thought, what's the point? Like, what is actually the point? Like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have any drive for nothing. I don't care about anything. I don't care about uni. I don't care about the money I've wasted. I don't care about nothing, right? And when you care about nothing, that's a dangerous place to be. You know what I mean?
What reignited that spark for you then? What was the turning point from being a rock bottom by the sounds of it to then, what was that climb back up like, and what triggered that climb?
It was shit. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it was shit. Like, it was like, I'm just living the same day and I'm sitting around feeling sorry for myself. You just get sick of it. Like, and it's almost like I sat there and I thought, well, I can't blame anyone now because I've made the decision to leave, right? This was my decision. But I can't now just be nothing from this. Like, something has to come from this. Like, once one door closed, another one opened. I'm not going to say there was a moment or anything, but I think a lot of it was just getting some money. And then once I started working sales again, because I was so impressionable, that was a bit of like a cult thing when I was in that sales background, but it did give me purpose. So I think it is very important to have something that you do something for. When you've got nothing to do it for, it's fucking hard. Like, that's why a lot of people feel so depressed.
But this is my take on depression. When you remove purpose, when you remove an intimate relationship, when you remove belonging, family, community, when you take away health, that then causes depression. But really, it's a lack of something.
Of course.
When you look at actual depression, where there's an imbalance of hormones in the brain, you've got to also factor in, are all those areas covered? If you're okay in those areas and you've actually still got this chemical imbalance, you're medically depressed, you know?
Yeah, and that's why they say money can't buy happiness. That's where I believe what you've just said coins that term, because someone can be living a high life, but if all these other identities that they have within themselves aren't getting met, those needs aren't getting met, that's where those feelings and emotions come, you know? Like even my best month of business was the hardest month of my life. And I sit and always think, I remember just looking at my numbers, because you know at the end of the month, you're going to look over your numbers, right? Looked at my numbers. I was sitting there, bonnet on, just finished off crying because I was just having a terrible day, right? It's like, oh, that's the biggest month I've ever had in business. That's how it felt. And I think when people see things online, they think, well, I'll be happy when that happens.
When I get there, yeah.
But I should be jumping off the rooftops now, made up with myself. I went to bed. I closed my laptop. I went, okay, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just not how things feel sometimes. You've got to have other needs being met. Do you know what I'm saying?
And I think I've made that switch as well personally, from being primarily focused on the numbers. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But at the same time, having that purpose, thinking about impact, and switching your goals instead of being a revenue goal or a profit goal or whatever it might be, thinking and genuinely meaning it as well. How many people can I impact and to what level?
Yeah, exactly.
Once you make that switch, the game changes. The game completely changes. Those feelings of, yeah, I've had a great month, but I feel like shit, they go away. You know? And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, especially with online business, because it is at your fingertips, you know, and people kind of, like I mentioned it before, the 10K months or whatever it might be, the 20K months, 30K months. When you get there, what then? What then?
If you think about it as well, like for me, you know what always used to give me comfort, like I do love a podcast, of course. I used to always watch like the CEO podcasts, because I know there's a lot of controversy around them. I like them. Do you know what I mean? I like the guests. I like to form my own opinions when I watch a podcast. I'm not watching it just because it's a podcast that's highly watched. You know what I mean? And I'll see these business owners who talk about things and they've lost everything, right? And on that scale of what I'm feeling right now, I need to imagine that could actually be me one day. Do you know what I mean? So if I don't deal with this properly, how am I going to deal with that properly? You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not willing to go through those hard parts, and I think especially in the fitness industry, a lot of people are getting told that they're business owners, but they don't relate to that. Yeah, they're personal trainers. They like to work with people. They like to guide a session. They maybe like to do an online program. Being a business owner, it's a bit different. Do you know what I'm saying? There's different things that you need to understand.
And you got to remember as well, me and you are not business owners, we're business operators. There's a difference.
Exactly.
There's a stark difference. We're on the front line.
Until you're managing a team of like 25 or different things over the world, you just, I know it sounds like you're a small fish in a big pond still. And that's why when I go online and I used to look at people who make XXX, I'd be like, okay, that's all right. Like, I feel like I'm comparing a little bit here. But then eventually I was like, okay, well, now I'm here. I don't know why anyone would ever compare, because once you get here, you'll know there's no confetti. You just got to keep doing the same thing.
There's not.
It's like you're waiting for someone to be like, well done. No one cares.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a look at the definition of small business. 10.2 mil rev. Anything under that, it's a small business.
That's what I'm saying.
Or 50 employees. That blew my mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, yeah. Next thing I want to touch on is, you're obviously a very independent woman. And you mentioned before that it can be a blessing and a curse. What do you mean by that exactly?
Hyper. Oh God. Really feel like my traumas are coming out today. Hyper independence is a problem for me. Hyper independence. Because I think, you know what it is? I've got sisters and brothers, but because I'm the youngest, they always say the youngest child is the more creative and the more like isolated one, right? Because they observe the behaviours of the older children, right? So
I agree with that. Thinking about my youngest brother.
A bit more creative, a bit more introvert, bit of a nerd. That's what they'll usually call them, right? I was definitely that. So when I was 7, let's say, my sisters and brothers were all full on adults, like 20 odds, like where I am now. Do you know what I mean? They were living the life, they had cars, and I was just observing them. And I think because of that, I spent a lot of time on my own. And that made me realize I like things the way I like things. And I kind of became a little bit of like a control freak. Still struggle with this now, by the way. So when I went out into the world and people started letting me down and I wasn't getting the same that I was given because I knew what I was able to give, it made me go back a peg. Like,
in what way? Is that in your personal relationships?
Personal relationships, even just like jobs. Yeah. Like, for example, if I worked a shift and I was absolutely doing everything to make sure everything ran smooth, and then someone isn't, and someone isn't as like into it as I am, what the fuck am I doing? Like, God, leave you alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're hopeless. You can't do this. I can only do this. And then I realized that I can't carry all this weight. You know what I mean? I can't carry all these things. I actually need other people. And I think it's important to understand that. So being independent has helped me get to where I am, yeah, of course. But being hyper independent has made me feel probably more isolated in the long term, and that I don't have anyone to do that with sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got you. And how has that affected you in your intimate relationship, say, with your fella? Does that manifest itself there?
See, he understands who I am, and he knows when he can read me very well. You know what I mean? He can get when I'm feeling a bit of unsettlement because I'm not in control, right? Like, even just little things like where we go to eat. I'm like, no, I don't want that. Like, no, we should go there. But like, look at the interior. He's like, chill, right? And I think it's important to have someone like that to do that with, because if they can recognize something that can spiral, they can just bring you back to reality a little bit, like grab your chimp and just put it in place a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what I think I need. But in the past, I had to maybe realize that I was kind of toxic as well. Like, the way I behaved and the way I reacted and all this, like, no one's there for me. It was silly. Like, they are. It's just that they're not on your terms all the time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I see that personally with women a lot nowadays. And I don't know where it's come from. And off camera, you mentioned the word misandry, which is like the the preconception that men are inherently bad, or they're out to get you, or whatever it might be. Okay, there is an element of that going on, as well as misogyny that gets thrown about even more so. But I think they both tie into each other. This hyper independence about women being hyper independent, and then this hate of men. They kind of tie into each other and feed off each other. But what advice would you give to a young woman who is striving for financial independence? What advice could you give that person? And what would you tell them to steer clear of, if that makes sense? Almost talking to yourself a few years ago when you were going through this thing. What advice would you give that person?
You know what it is? You know this whole phrase, I don't need a man. Yeah. I think everybody needs somebody, right?
Agreed.
But I think you need to find the person who's potentially your biggest fan, and sometimes that person is yourself. Yeah, does that make sense? Like, you are your biggest supporter. I think a lot of the time women can sometimes pour into a man more like a project. Does that make sense? That if he is well kept after and he's doing this, then that gives me more worth. But the thing is with me is what I realized, I ain't that type of woman. Like, I can't be told what to do too well. Like, I'm a bit more, I'm going to challenge it. Some women are actually more submissive. That's what they've seen. That's what behavior they are. I didn't grow up with that. Do you know what I'm saying? So anything I was trying to fulfill through a relationship was never actually fulfilling me. But once I obviously had the things that I had and the goals that I had on my own, then I got into a relationship. It complemented each other. Does that make sense? You can't live through your relationship. And if you do want to become more financially independent, know that women are actually better than multitasking than men. So learn more, like invest in more time in doing those things. Stop thinking that someone's here to save you. And I think that's sometimes what can come up in a lot of women's behaviours when they go and date. Like, I'm just waiting for this guy to put a ring on my finger and then put me in a house and everything will be fine. But do you actually want that though? Like, do you want that for yourself, or is that what social media is telling you, type of thing? You know what I'm saying?
Got you. You've mentioned the word awoken woman before.
Awoken
woman. What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I think the term woke is like...
It's changed though, innit?
Yeah. The term woke is like a bit like, you know what a hotep is? Do you know what that is?
What?
A hotep. It's like those... It's like when you speak to someone and they constantly can't let go of like black rights or like a rights of a person, like everything they talk about.
I'm sure my age. I've never heard that before.
Do you know who Dr. Umar is?
No.
No? Okay. If you go home, go look at Dr. Umar's stuff. It's so funny. He's a bit of a hotep, right? Like, and he's great at what he does and he loves his message, but that term woke usually coins from that, like
Got ya.
constantly talking about the rights of race or whatever, and that's your whole
I
personality.
think it's all bullshit, I'll tell you straight. You know, when people cling on to, don't get me wrong, certain demographics and races are at a disadvantage, but just work harder, bro. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, that comes from a sense of entitlement. And I think the rules are the rules. The rules of the game are the rules of the game. You either play within them or you moan about them. So which side are you going to fall on? And I think anyone who moans about, Asian people don't get this or black people don't get this or whatever. Yes, we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't live in oppression, but I think you've got to understand it does exist. That's all it is, right? Like me personally, I've never felt oppressed to the level someone who maybe lives in the deep south of America has. I've probably never felt sexism as much as someone in a different country with a different whole setup does. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like colorism as well. Like me personally, like I'll hear a lot about, your skin tone and how as a black person that can get you higher in certain places or it can make people think that you're lower. I've personally never felt that. You know what I mean? For me, it was kind of like, well, I'm black. Like I've never really
I've never
thought
really
deeper than
experienced that either. Like I've experienced racism where someone's come up to my face and said, yo,
Yeah.
X, Y, Z.
It just exists.
Yeah.
And it exists for certain people. But I think the problem is that if you highlight that exists and you live within it, and then you say everything you do is because of that, you're just recycling your own oppression.
Yeah. You just give up your power.
Yeah, of course.
Any power that you have got. And that's why I think it's a dangerous thing. Is like, I don't believe in anything that takes away from my power and relinquishes my ownership. Because then I've given up my ability to change the situation. Does that make sense?
Of course.
I can remember when when I come back from Pakistan when I was like 20. Okay. I thought, yeah, I'm packing and doing the drugs. I'm going on the straight and narrow. Yeah. That lasted a few weeks. But I went to apply for a job at a Domino's Pizza and they told me jog on. And not at one point did I think, oh, that's because my skin colour. I was, bro, it's Domino's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or I've never related anything to, oh, it's because I'm Asian. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me.
Yeah.
It doesn't help me improve. I can't change that. So if it is or it isn't because of that, it's not going to help me to move forward.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know what? If it was to ever happen, whatever situation that happened in, you was not meant to be in anyway, right?
Yeah,
like
bang on.
If you go to a job and someone discriminates you for your colour or the way you wear your hair, then you're probably not going to be happy in that workplace anyway. If I go into an establishment and I experience racism, then I ain't fucking eating there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. But yeah, I think just going back on your question, like, what is woke? I don't know.
I think it's changed. I think for me personally, it used to be being aware of certain knowledge or being aware of this status quo and kind of going against that. But now it's like, it's a bit soft, I think.
I just think people read too many books sometimes and don't actually put things into application. Yeah, like you can say what you want from a book, like all them self-help books, they can be great, do you know what I mean? But they're absolutely nothing if you're not using them.
Yeah.
And that's the same with like this woke behaviour. Like you're sitting on social media, looking at politics, looking at this, looking at that, but you yourself haven't maybe spoke to someone who's experienced something, you know what I mean? Like I've had conversations with people and they'll have like a completely different viewpoint. I remember being in the Ivy and having a conversation with a guy about George Floyd's situation, right? And what he failed to understand and what we both kind of failed to understand is that we're not American, right? We don't have the same sort of approaches that they do over there. We don't really get it. We can only understand what we can. No one's right or wrong, but people run that like I am right type of thing when it comes to woke. It's not like that. You know what I'm saying?
So the event last year, well, it's going to be last year by the time this is aired.
Oh yeah?
It's going out February. I think you've got a event coming up.
February.
Is it February? Okay, cool. Numbers, who's speaking, what's going on? Give us a rundown.
Yeah, so we did Femtour in London 2024, and that was basically from women from all backgrounds, cultures to come and learn more about fitness, nutrition, training, female health. Just a good day for people to feel welcome into kickstarting the lifestyle change. And we're doing the same thing a year later, right? But the goal really is to bring it to the north and have a lot more people be able to...
What made you take it down south? Because obviously you're from Liverpool.
Clients. Just clients. Okay. A lot more clients up in London. Really like the gym space. And I wanted to kind of go big because London's the capital. So if you go big on that, then anything else feels a little bit easier. Do you get what I mean? It's not going to be as hard because Manchester's around the corner from us. But yeah, we're going to be having talks around female health, so postpartum and pregnancy alongside training. We're going to look at mindset, rehab and mobility as well, resistance training specifically for women. And then we're going to have an interactive day with a team of 6 coaches, me included, walking you through exercise, form, technique before you obviously step into your gym journey, okay? And everything else. We're going to have some music. We're going to have good vibes, gift bags, all of that. But I think the main thing is we want women to come out of there feeling like they've took something from it, they're empowered by it, and they can actually make the lifestyle change that they want.
Wicked. Few rapid fire questions for you.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What's one thing about being Scouse that you think everyone should know?
We don't like Margaret Thatcher. And we ate the sun. And it's not Asda, it's the Asda. It's the Tesco.
Is it Home and Bargains as well?
Home and Bargains.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah. Yeah, we just like to shorten words down, but yeah, we don't like Margaret Thatcher at all, man.
Okay.
No.
A bit of a deeper one now. If you could solve one cultural issue overnight, what would it be and why? I know. Heavy that.
Yeah, it just exploded. One. I'd probably say lack of self-belief, probably, within certain cultures of what they can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's my lot.
Yeah.
It's my lot. I have this all the time. And it's from like, I believe it's from, like, I never bought into it because I was always like very outspoken, very much the black sheep. And I kind of owned that. And I never did what I was told. That was me. But everyone else did. And then when I've kind of come onto social media and I still come from that community, I know there's whispers going on. Like, what the fuck's he doing? He shouldn't be doing that.
Oh my God, why is he doing that?
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I fully understand that. Would you say it's in Asian communities more than anything else? Or the other communities as well?
I think I've noticed it in Asian communities a lot because there's certain... One thing I know about Asian communities the most is that there is always going to be someone in the family who's like grafts really hard to get them where they want to get to in life.
Mm-hmm.
And they take big risks as well. Do you know what I mean? Family is everything. You know, it's a big thing. But I think because of that, a lot of parents vicariously live through their children, push certain behaviours in children, put certain beliefs on the children. And if you're not married with the car, with the husband who's not a doctor or whatever, then you're kind of not where you need to be.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? That needs to change because when you bring someone over to a westernized country, you can still obviously seek for the same things, but it is going to shift the way they see life very differently. And I think you do have to understand the impacts that has. Yeah.
And I think it's like I'm 3rd generation now. Dad's born here. Granddad's from Pakistan. And I think I was pretty fortunate, I'd say, that my dad is born here because he gets it a lot more.
Yeah, it's important.
Whereas my old man, my granddad used to own corner shops. My old man was taken. He was sent to the shop when he was 16 and didn't leave till he was 30, son.
Yeah.
And that was his life. Do you know what I mean? And that's, like you just said, expectations. You've got to be a certain way. You either become a doctor or you come work for us.
Yeah.
You know, and that can hold people back. Massively, and that's what I've seen, especially in terms of belief systems and believing what you're actually capable of. It just stunts your growth.
Exactly.
You might have this innate, inclination towards something, whether it is creative, whether it is sports, whatever it might be, that can be shut down. I think it's less prominent now, especially, as the generations go on, but definitely, I think with my generation and definitely the one before, that was very prevalent.
Yeah. I was laughing about this. I was like, certain cultures are very obedient. They do what they're told. They do what they're told. Like, you're being told to do something, really, aren't you? Like, you're trying to please your family. Nothing comes from being a people pleaser. It's like little things. Like, when I grew up, like, my mum and dad, like, no one agreed with my mum and dad being together. Do you know what I mean? Could have very easily just gone against, like, never spoke to my family again over that. Do you know what I mean? But they didn't. They accepted it because she decided to go against the grain. And I think in a weird way, you've got to kind of do that with your family. Because once you're an adult and you have autonomy over your decisions, it might upset your mum. But if it's good for you, it's good for you.
Especially if you're trying to go somewhere that they've never been.
Of course.
You can't take advice from somebody like that, whether it is a parent or not. And a lot of the time when I started online coaching, my dad did not get it. He was like, "What, you're gonna sell? You're gonna sell diet plans online?"
My family don't get it.
He didn't get it.
So you do Zoom workouts?
Yeah, exactly. Didn't understand, but he gets it now. He's actually on plan, funnily enough.
Is he? You got your dad on plan?
Yeah. One final rapid fire question. Favorite meal for yourself?
I'm just going to have to switch sides for this one. It's curry, goat rice and peas, mac and cheese and a dumpling,
Nice.
Best. What about you?
Ooh, I'm a pasta guy,
Pasta?
I like pasta. I like Italian food, me.
Okay. What type of pasta? Because there's very many pastas.
So for me, I'm going to change that actually. I like gnocchi. I like a good gnocchi.
I hate gnocchi.
Really?
It's horrible. Do you not feel about 20 stone after eating it?
I don't mind. I don't mind. Pesto gnocchi is the one.
I don't like gnocchi. Nah.
Don't knock gnocchi.
Don't knock the gnocchi.
Right. So one takeaway that you want people to remember after hearing my and your conversation today, what would it be? One piece of advice.
Stop waiting for instant gratification. Just do the thing and do it well.
Nice. And where can people find you?
So my TikTok handle is Mentored by Maya. My Instagram handle is Mentored by Maya. And my YouTube handle is Mentored by Maya. And then the website is www.mentoredbymaya.co.uk. Yeah, all the same. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you hit the like button and make sure you sub to the channel. Catch you soon. Peace.